Good morning. My name is Claire Clark and I am from Dynam. We are supporting Highlands and Islands Enterprise to deliver this event today. It's great to have you all with us for this next session in our NEXUS webinar series. A very warm welcome to you all. Before I pass you over to Andrea McCall from HIE, I'd just like to spend a minute explaining how we will run today's webinar. As an audience member, you are automatically muted, but we have a couple of ways for you to get actively involved. You can use your question box at any point throughout the webinar and we will pick up as many as we can during the Q&A. You'll also see an icon called the raised hand icon, and during question time, if you've got a mic and you want us to take you off mute so you can connect directly with our speakers, then just click on the icon and we'll get you connected. And finally, we always want to promote knowledge sharing and collaboration, so we do record every session. We will, of course, share the recording after the event so you can watch again or share with anyone else you think may be interested. That's all from me just now. I'll pass you over to Andrea, who will introduce today's speakers. Andrea.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, hello, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Andrea McCall from the Life Sciences team at Highlands and Islands Enterprise in Inverness. Just to give you a bit of an idea, the NEXUS webinar series is an opportunity to find out more about what is going on in our life sciences, health and technology community, and to make connections as well. And in case you don't know, NEXUS is our co-working suite in Solaster House on Inverness campus, where we have life sciences and technology companies co-locating and collaborating. And NEXUS is funded by the Inverness and Highlands City Region deal and European funding. So without further ado, I just want to basically welcome our speakers today. We have Brian and Jude joining us today, and they will tell us a little bit more about LymeApp. So that is a tool that can help you manage your exposure to ticks and Lyme disease. So really looking forward to this because it will be very interesting to find out more about the science behind it, I guess, the biology behind it, and also the technology and how you made it work. So over to Brian and Jude.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian. I'm the Business Development and Commercial Lead at ID Maps. We've got a quick presentation here, maybe about 18, 19 slides, and we have a couple of poll questions as well. So myself and Jude will be switching in between the slides and going a bit more in depth into the technology and, as I say, the features of the new product. So I think Andrea, I think we're going to start with a poll question first as well.
First poll question, if you can all answer for us. Do all ticks carry Lyme disease? So if you can answer yes or no, that would be great. So just showing you the result there, Brian and Jude, 100% saying no.
And 100% would be right. Jude, do you want to introduce yourself before we start the presentation?
Yes, my name is Jude. I am a statistician and I work on the LymeApp. I'm also a staff of the SRUC here in Inverness. So most of the things you're going to hear today is what we've started some few years ago, and I think I've presented some of it. So for those of you who have listened to me, to the talk, you see some familiar talk, but there's some new things you also see today. Thank you very much.
Okay, so without further ado, so we're going to basically discuss the LymeApp product, which is a data-driven solution for the prevention of Lyme disease, which was basically done by ID Maps company. So first slide here is, I'm hoping that a lot of you who have basically obviously take the time to look into what Lyme disease is or ticks being in an area. Before I started with ID Maps probably about half a year ago, I wasn't too, as I say, familiar with Lyme disease. I knew about ticks, but you know, it's one of the ones where, in terms of the educational piece, the more people that we can educate or put in preventative measures when they're going to be in an area where there's ticks, then hopefully we can prevent ourselves from seeing news headlines like this. Now, The Lyme disease itself, we know it can be a very chronic illness. There's no actual cure for it as of yet. So, like I say, the work that we've been doing here is more of a preventative measure to educate people when they're going into areas where there is ticks to obviously just take care of themselves and also check themselves. You can see here some of the stories are fairly gripping and horrifying for the people that actually do contract Lyme disease. So, what is Lyme disease? So Lyme Borreliosis is an inflammatory disease which obviously is passed on by a certain percentage of ticks. So when you're out in the countryside or when you're walking about, ticks are usually on the end of leaves or, just sitting waiting on kind of a host animals to pass by, because they can't fly, they can't really jump. So, they are basically put between animals and more importantly passed on to humans as well through host animals, which we can see here are kind of rodents, mice and squirrels, shrews, hedgehogs, hares, deers and birds as well. Now, a lot of you maybe not know this, but a tick has to be present on the skin for at least 24 hours to transmit the infection. Now, that would be an actual infected tick, has to be on you for at least 24 hours for it to actually transmit the infection. So hence the reason why with the product that we've done, a lot of the education behind the preventative measures is just about when you're in the area, just make sure if you've been alerted by obviously our product and software, that you take the time to actually check yourself or basically whoever you're with as well, just basically remind them that the preventative measures that you can put in place can basically stop you from getting Lyme disease. Unfortunately, we can't stop you getting bit by ticks, but that's just the nature of being out in the wildlife. There's loads of other things that can obviously come across, but if you take the time to basically check yourself, preventative measures, then we hope that you cannot contract Lyme disease. But as you can see here, with the poll we done at the very beginning, not all ticks carry Lyme disease bacteria. They do say that it can be at least 10%, but that can rise to a higher percentage based on the geographical area and temperature as well. Now, when it comes to temperature as well, so we are saying that basically Lyme disease or ticks are a year-round problem with peak activity between April and October. But you all know recently over the course of the last few years with the global warming, we're starting to see warmer temperatures at times of the year where we would expect it to be cold and where the ticks wouldn't be as active, because when it's colder, they're going to a dormant state versus when it's hot. And when it's hot, there's more people out. We're wearing shorts and t-shirts, so you're more prone to actually getting a tick on you because you've not got, let's just say, preventative measures in terms of dress wear on. So the impact of Lyme disease. So cases have risen tenfold to an estimated 3,000 a year in Scotland, with 65,000 across Europe and over 300,000 in the USA. And like we said earlier, there's no current vaccine available for it. We didn't really understand Lyme disease until 1975 when it was first kind of diagnosed, and I think it was Massachusetts, the old town of Lyme in the US, when it first basically came to our actual, let's just say, awareness of being an actual disease. But more importantly, the social cost for Lyme disease can be equally as impactful as its healthcare costs. We know that the disease, it's a chronic illness, it's fatigue, it's like, you're totally floored, so you're having to take time off work. Because obviously, the fatigue and more importantly, the fact that it can be a long-term effect on the actual unfortunate people that contract the disease. So again, with the whole point of us having a piece of software here, which can allow you to basically check where you're going, you'll be notified if there's high tick activity in your area. Then again, with the knowledge base within the actual app itself, we just want to make sure that we give you as much information as possible to prevent yourselves actually contracting the disease. Like it says, only 10% of the ticks will carry it, and you've got up to 24 hours if you are bitten by an infected tick to safely remove it, and hopefully that would actually keep you in good health. So our solution. Now what I'm going to do here is pass the mic over to Jude, and he's going to take you through the next couple of slides here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So you'll be moving the cursor from me and changing the slides for me. Yes. So talking about the LymeApp solution, Brian has actually given a kind of introduction of the impact of the disease. So ours is to find a way of minimizing this impact by reducing the risk of exposure. So what we've done is to find a way of predicting where the ticks are. And please, if you can move to the next slide so that we can move on. Yeah, Brian actually has done this. This slide tells us what not removing the ticks and time could cause. If it is possible to get the ticks removed from your body as it's attached within the first 24 hours, then the risk could be eliminated. But if not removed, then it could cause debilitating diseases. So the picture here tells us, I just lifted this from a medic's website. It tells us how the disease develops with time. So what LymeApp is trying to do is actually to see if it's possible to stop the disease at least at the nick of time before it gets worse. So within the first 1 month, if the disease is treated, it is possible that it could be eliminated from the body. But if it's allowed to go on, then it's possible that it could lead to even to mental problems. So the LymeApp is designed in such a way that we can catch the disease on time and make sure that it doesn't go to this stage 3, which is called the late chronic cases. Please, can we go down to the next one? So for us to be able to tackle this problem, first of all, we need to understand what the ecology of ticks is. And in understanding that ecology, we want to understand how that ecology actually involves humans. And this diagram here depicts that pictorially very well. And from all indication, it's assumed that ticks only feed 3 to 4 times through their lifetime. And there is no indication that the eggs actually are infected with the bacteria that cause Lyme disease. People have investigated that. But the suspect is that when the larva feeds on these small mammals, as you can see in this picture, then that is when ticks are exposed to the infection of Borrelia. So they can be infected when they are at the liver stage, but also most of the time, the liver stage does not actually bite humans. Most of the ones that is implicated in biting humans is at the nymph stage. Most of the time when you go to the garden or you're hiking and you find ticks on yourself, is most likely to be the nymph stage. So the red dot there, the red arrow you see there, is indicating that people said there's about 70% of the ticks that bite humans are actually nymphs, and those infections come from the nymph stage. So in understanding this, how the tick develop with time and what they feed on and where actually they live and what kind of temperature they like, in understanding the whole biodiversity around the ticks, then it now helps us to understand how we can use this information to build a kind of predictive model where all this information can be obtained and feed into that model and be able to predict where we could find ticks. So please, the next one. So what we've done is to collect all the data based on the ecology we understand. And for us actually to collect this data, we need the data at every nook and cranny of Scotland, as we're using Scotland as our test bed. So we need to understand how this ecology of ticks is distributed around uh, Scotland. And there's no way we can actually know that except we have the magics of the satellite. The satellite has every information. If you need information about temperature, the land surface temperature, the kind of vegetation in any area, the what they call the greenness or evapotranspiration, all those things are easily obtained from the satellite. And with that, we were able to now use that information to build our model. And not only satellite information, actually, we also have the Met Office information, which gives us the atmospheric temperature everywhere and most of everywhere in Scotland. And also some data that has to do with like those little animals you saw on the slide, the previous slides. Those data like the moles is people have data on moles, people have data on birds, people have data on deer, and those information we had, and we're able to use that to build the model we had. So the diagram you're looking at here is just a picture that shows you the process that we have to go in order to build the map we have used for this. And then we don't need to actually look at the statistical model, but all those things have to enter into a model, and where we now have to use some machine learning approach in order to obtain the best predictive model. Actually, we have more than 20 or 40 models, and from there we'll be able to select the best of models that gives us the best prediction of where the ticks are in every now we're using 1 kilometer radius, 1 kilometer grid across Scotland. So Scotland is partitioned in 1 kilometer grids, and within those 1 kilometer grids, we can tell to some extent, with some level of precision, what the risk of tick exposure could be in that particular area. So if we can move to the next one. So this is looking at the whole architecture, what we call the system architecture. This is where actually we started when we wanted to build this. So how the whole system will work. So in collecting all available data, both the satellite data, both the human data, the disease data itself, the ones that we find from the lab here in Inverness, in Redmore, and also the ones that the GPs, because most of the GPs treat Lyme disease if they actually find the rash on human, on anybody's skin, they can treat the person without actually sending the person to the lab. So if we collect all those information, we'll be able to have a good idea of what the incidence or the rate of infection is in Scotland. Then all this information is collected, and we have a dedicated database that is actually managed by ID Maps, where all this information is stored, and from there we can now do our models. And you see, produce this app, and people also, when they cite ticks, they can report back to the same database. When they report back, it goes into the database, and we also use those reported data from the individuals to update our maps. So it's not only going to be based on satellite information, but people will now validate what the satellite, what the models have predicted by actually reporting. So we go back to what we have predicted and compare it with what actually happened. So if we can go to the next one, please. So I think this is the partners who we are working with. EGO is the environmental research group in Oxford University, they are actually helping us with the collection of all the satellite data that we need. They are experts in downloading those satellites and then doing what we call the transformation, and it gets to us before we can now do our models. Then our friends in Belgium, Avier, GIS, experts in GIS mapping. They've done a lot of work for the United Nations and working on mosquito in Africa. So we're working with them on another vector here, ticks, and also NHS Highlands do not need any introduction. So all the human data that we need, and also they make sure that every information we are going to put out there about Lyme disease are the accurate information about Lyme disease. So every information we are going to put in this app, which I think Brian will be talking about, must be quality assured by NHS. Okay. So the next one.
Okay, thanks, Jude. Appreciate that.
Okay.
I think we'll go for the poll 2 question now, please.
Great. So poll question number 2, when are ticks most active? If you can vote now, is it summer or winter? When are ticks most active? Summer or winter? Give you a couple more seconds. When are ticks most active? Okay, thank you. And we have 100% for summer.
That would be correct, but when does summer start and when does summer end now? As it seems to be warm, getting warmer and warmer and warmer, unfortunately, which would obviously mean that ticks are going to be less and less dormant, which only helps, well, doesn't help us, but it would help, let's just say, in increasing the likelihood of being bitten. Okay, so quickly moving on. Again, thank you, Jude, for going over that information in terms of the mapping, and there's a lot of, as you say, hydraulics that go under the bonnet to make ID maps and the LymeApp function fully, which is great. Like I say, using the satellite data from the European Space Agency to our counterparts and friends for the mapping in Belgium, it's a fabulous collaboration across a lot of teams, and let's just say data scientists, professors, to be able to present this product to the public, and obviously for businesses as well. So the next couple of slides, I'm just going to very quickly go over in terms of which Judy just basically spoke about, the NHS quality assured content. So as you can see here, the expert panel review. So we need to ensure that users are accessing accurate and up-to-date information. We are not we're not doctors, we're not basically telling people, we're only advising and trying to put preventative measures in place. But again, just be rest assured that any information that we do put within the app is already being quality assured by the NHS. So that basically makes sure that we are obviously ticking all the boxes and not being liable to giving false information. So you can obviously be rest assured that the information you see within the app is 100% accurate. So yeah, again, the tailored content is there to meet the requirements of the user. So the next couple of slides, we will show you just a couple of snippets of the knowledge base, which basically gives you as much information as possible about ticks, and how to basically obviously prevent yourself from being bitten, on what to do if you are actually bitten. So this is the kind of a live view of the actual app. I was going to put a video in earlier, which is on YouTube, but just given the complexities of doing technology and webinars, nine times out of 10 something usually goes wrong. So we'll just revert to the nice old kind of just still frames, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, everybody that's on webinar today will be able to actually download the public version of the app. So again, we'll keep you guys up to date when what's available to the public. So just looking at the first kind of a image here. So this basically gives you the general map overview for Scotland. Now, the mapping that we have done just now is only available in Scotland, although we have mapped out the rest of the UK, which will hopefully be released kind of a Q1 in 2022. So what we've got here is the kind of the user interface for just the generic map, which shows you where people have already highlighted tick activity. So moving into the second one here, so we've got basically the heat map, which goes from a kind of a dark grey, light orange to high orange based on the tick activity in the area. Now, the great thing about the actual app itself, so if you are going to be going up to, say, Aberdeen or across to Aberdeen, should I say, or down to Aberdeen, depending on where you are in the country, you can basically preempt your travel. If you're going hill walking, or you're going in an area where you're an avid kind of a cyclist, hill walker, take your dog for a walk, or taking the kids out somewhere, so you can basically type in, you're going to Aberdeen, and that basically allow you to see the activity of ticks within the area that you're going to be going to, which is great for your preventative measures. Because again, if you know that you are going to be going into that area, then you would you'd pack extra stuff, or make sure you've got the right kind of a dress wear to basically protect yourself. When it comes to the third one here, so we are all about, I think as Jude says, for us to basically cover the whole of Scotland and get all the activity, it's pretty much impossible. So we do rely heavily on community data, which is where people who actually download the app themselves can basically now be involved in actually reporting tick activity. So we can see here, hence the reason why when you look at the map model, image number 2, with the grey, light orange to dark orange. So again, you can go in basically where you are, you can basically say, I've seen a couple of ticks, I've seen not a lot of ticks, or I've seen loads of ticks. And more importantly, if you have been bitten, you can actually take a picture of that to share with your GP or your pharmacist, or more importantly, just basically report the activity so that other users who are coming into the area, maybe within the next couple of hours or the next day, will basically be informed of the fact that there is high tick activity. And one of the good things about the app is once you have downloaded it, you're actually using it. So if you're going into an area where there is high tick activity, you'll be sent a push notification to say, please be aware you're going into an area where there's high tick activity. So again, in terms of the preventative measures, the precautions, that's the whole part of what we want the app to be able to do for the actual users themselves. And again, by you being part of the community data, you're basically becoming part of the data feed. And the more information that we can have within the app in terms of tick activity, then obviously the better that is for everybody that's using the app. So this is kind of that's the simplistic part of it, but we want to be able to show if you're going somewhere, is there tick activity, what's the level of tick activity, and if you actually have been bitten, then you can basically report that, and hopefully you get the preventative measures from the knowledge base, which is the last one here. So again, with the knowledge base, there's loads of information in here, there's even videos, but ultimately we want as many people as possible to be aware of the fact that what ticks basically are and how nasty it can be if you actually are bitten and you don't actually put preventative measures in place to basically remove the tick within the 24 hours if it is a tick that's been infected with Lyme disease. So it's one of the ones where the app is there. One of the things we've just released, we've not told anybody about yet as well, is the offline version of the app. Now, yourself, if you are going to be out in the top of the mountains or in the countryside, it's quite hard to get a signal. So one of the key features with the actual app itself is we've got the offline version. So again, you can basically have the app there, you've got no signal, you can still go in, report all the activity, and once you get back and you get to where you get a signal, it basically records and registers everything, so you can still report that activity, which is obviously great, because again, we don't want to be giving false information on where you've seen a tick or where you've been bitten. Because if you can think about it, if people are going to go and report to the GP that they've been bitten by a tick, it's usually in the GP surgery, not in the actual, let's just say, lat long of where the actual tick activity happened. So again, we're trying to put in as much information to collate the data that we basically put out to the general public as let's just say, it's as quality assured as possible. So that is kind of the public version of the app itself. Now, being a business, and I don't know if being up in Inverness, I'm sure a lot of you have came across ticks, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, or even somebody who's had Lyme disease. Now, one of the other elements to the app that we're very obviously keen to promote as well is the commercial element to it. Now, a lot of businesses have from the occupational health and safety, they've got a duty of care and attention to their staff as well. So whether that's like land estate owners, forestry commission, even just in general, people who are going for walks, or like the scouts, the MOD, the army on exercises. So again, there's a lot of companies that have occupational health targets that need to be maintained. So what we've done is we've basically devised another element to the actual app itself, which will assist companies and basically looking after the staff and obviously helping them basically regularly, let's just say, make sure that the staff are taken care of. Because, like we said at the very beginning of the actual presentation, now anybody who gets Lyme disease, the downtime, the time off work, the economical cost that has, it's a chronic illness. So again, if we can have an element to the product which basically can again prevent actually employees or remind employers to actually remind their employees that when they're in basically an area where there is high activity, to basically look after themselves, put those preventative measures in place. And ultimately, if we can then, as I can just show you actually while I'm talking about it. So what we've got here is like the web portal desk version. So for an occupational manager or a health and safety executive who's basically sitting in their office, who has a team of, say, 20 land estate beaters who are out on a game shoot, etc. So we can basically see within here that the staff are obviously adding to the community data, which is obviously helping us have more quantifiable, up-to-date assured data, but more importantly for the actual company themselves. So we can see here they can add team members. The team members can basically add their own activity. So as you can see here, Jane Cooper, so the report history through the last kind of couple of weeks is medium risk, high risk, etc. So the more data that we can basically put in place to allow us to basically allow companies to look after the staff and staff to look after themselves, then that to us is the product basically evolving to allow everybody to be made aware and put those preventative measures in place. Now, with the kind of the activity of people being in areas, now we did say that you would get a push notification saying that you're entering an area which is high tick activity. So what the teams element does as well for basically businesses will allow the team, let's just say, administrator to actually send notifications saying, Jane, you were in an area where one of your other team members reported high tick activity. It's been 12 hours since you were in that area. Have you basically checked yourself for ticks? So again, all those preventative measures, push notifications, just to ensure that the due diligence and care and attention that a company is due to their staff, or even, within the public version, if you're going out hill walking before your friends, you can actually create like a micro team where you can basically communicate as well, just to make sure that everybody's putting those preventative measures in place. And ultimately, that's what the whole point of the app and the technology and the years of research and data that's went behind let's just say, under the bonnet to have this nice user interface and fully polished features and app, which is now hopefully going to be available within the next couple of, let's just say, this year it will be available to download for the public. So very much that is the app itself. It's very nice. It's the app works exceptionally well. If you are an avid hill walker, or if you have been exposed to ticks, or somebody who's had Lyme disease, then please pass on the good news that there is a product out there which will allow you to identify areas of high tick activity, and more importantly, the preventative measures that you can put in place to ensure that you don't become one of those statistics that ends up with this chronic illness. So anything we can do to help prevent that, then that's what we're trying to do with the product that we basically have. So I think I've spoken enough. Maybe we could go for poll 3 before we move on to the questions, please.
Yeah, of course. So question number 3 for the poll: are ticks insects or parasites? If you can vote now, please. Are ticks insects or parasites? And there are our results. 60% for parasites, 40% for insects. So hopefully you can share with us, Brian.
Yep, well, the 40% are wrong, and the 60% are right. Ticks are indeed parasites. They look like insects, right enough. I initially thought that myself, before I obviously done a bit of research into it. So yeah, just based on the poll, not all ticks carry Lyme disease. It's usually about 10%. Sometimes that can be a higher percentage depending on the geographical area. Ticks are most active in the summer or when it's warmer. And ticks are parasites and not insects. So thank you very much. So does anybody have any questions for Jude or myself?
Great, thanks so much, Brian and Jude. We have had a few questions in from audience members, so there is still time. If you want to get your questions in, use your box, and we will get those over to Brian and Jude. So, first question from Mark Robson. Has habitat data been incorporated into the modelling process, specifically Scotland's habitat map recently published by Nature Scotland?
Yes, I think it all depends on what makes up the habitats. Like I said, the information we used, we did not actually use the recently published habitat map, but you may find that what is contained in those habitat map actually is what we have used, like land cover types, and if there is any type of mammal living around that side, and we have information on that, we use that also. Maybe it's good to look at what I've not have opportunity of looking at the habitat map to see actually what it contains. Maybe I may have to look at that. Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks, Jude.
Thank you.
Next question from Kate McDonald. Really great work, thank you. So you will have an app for the public and one for businesses. How will you make money from each of these? So if you can share, what is your business model?
That is a very, very, very good question. Hot topic, actually. So we basically will be looking to generate revenue through a couple of streams. The first and most obvious one would be the commercialization of the product for like land estate owners, healthcare, pharmaceutical companies, pharmacies, where we will basically be selling licenses. With as you can see, the two elements of the app that we showed there or showcased, there was one which was just the general public version, where you can see the map and interact with the map, etc., versus the teams element, where you can set up teams and you can basically monitor your staff's activity. So there will be there'll be a couple of versions. So when we release it, let's say through iTunes, we're looking at having just like a free download, which is like a basic version for the public, with potential to have in-app purchases to basically allow you to basically upgrade and have more functionality within the app. Again, it's not something that we've 100% agreed on what we're going to do, but in order for us to basically future-proof and basically further develop the product, like I say, unfortunately we're not a charity, so we do need to obviously fund some future adaptations of the app. So there may be a kind of a free basic download for the public, or it might just be an actual free download for the public with a particular amount of features. But ultimately, we would be looking more to commercialise it for actual businesses, and we do see the need to obviously allow people who are avid hill walkers, who obviously the app has basically been designed to steer towards the preventative measures. So yeah, really good question. Like I say, we've not actually launched to the public yet, so that's still something as on a commercial basis that we're basically trying to figure out. But yeah, good question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. A related question from Tony. What are the costs associated with the app?
So if we were going to be going for like a basic version download, it would be like $1.99, or if it's going to be like a download with all the features for the public, it would be like $4.99 for an annual subscription. round it baseline kind of round about there. For businesses, obviously, when it's talking about licenses, it really depends on how many employees that they have and that they need to cover. So again, that's still a kind of a conversation that we're having with different businesses at this precise moment in time. But yeah, so again, when you get into the App Store, you know, the general kind of a consensus for downloading an app is like $1.99 for a year subscription, or if it is an in-app purchase app, you know, it's generally, you know, it's kind of a peaks around about $4.99. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next message is from Andrew, and he says, good work by the LymeApp team, very important contribution to reducing the risk of Lyme diseases. His question is, when was the last tick surveillance done, and has actual field sampling been done to account for the change over time?
Oh, well, yes, change over time. We should also remember that there's change within the year and there's change over the year. So if we're looking at it within the year, which we describe as tick activity within the year, which is seasonality of ticks, this has been established. In fact, one of our PhD students who just finished this year made a study which looked at how ticks actually, maybe if I use the abundance of ticks, the abundance of ticks changes over within the year and across years. So she did it for 2 years. So we're able to look at how this varies, and that will inform us on how things change within the year and also how it changes over the years. Remember that we are looking at Scotland as a whole, and the only thing that could change is temperature. When temperature changes, ticks actually changes the way they act. So we are using this model to mimic the way ticks behave. So if in any year temperature becomes higher, we should be expecting to have higher tick activity. So it all depends on what you mean by change. If it is change due to climate change or due to the seasonal changes. But these have been taken care of in the model, and we have made some little studies that informed us on how to build this into our model. So in order to capture those either year trend or within year trends or seasonalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. Next question from Jody. When do you anticipate a more accurate reflection on tick population? How, as in how long? And presumably this will become more rich when the community input their own data.
Yes, that was exactly what I said. Naturally, the base map we have is based on the predictions we have. And we think that by the time people begins to report, that could inform or validate the predictions we have. And the map is updated as we get new data. Yes.
Great. So do you know roughly how long that will be before you get a more accurate reflection, if you got a rough idea of the actual time frame?
Naturally, also, tick population is difficult to quantify unless you have to do what we call the tick dragging, where you have to go using blankets to count the ticks. We are now expecting that the public will give us the number of ticks, or the count of ticks in their area. What they'll be giving us is the ticks that are attached on them or on their pets, or maybe crawling on them. And if they report only one tick, there may be other 100 ticks over there. So we don't expect them to have to give us exactly what, but it gives us an idea of if I say something like the presence or absence of ticks in that particular area, and then the probability we calculate gives us a measure of the magnitude of that presence. But the magnitude of the presence is defined by the habitats in that area, maybe the kind of the ecology in that area, thinking of things like the vegetation or the temperature or humidity or whatever in that area that will inform us. But it's difficult to say count the tick population. Nobody can ever get that unless you have to count all the animals and make sure you count all the wild animals and look at the ticks attached to them, and also go to all the vegetations and count all the ticks there, which is not possible. So what we have done is to give a kind of an estimate of what the likelihood could be in terms of probability or risk.
Okay, thank you, Jude. Another question from Andrew. He said, also, I noticed a button to report bites. Who does this report go to? Is it part of a public health surveillance for Lyme disease?
Yes, the report comes to LymeApp database. I showed that in the system diagram that I showed initially. So the report comes to the database, and we use that database to update our map. So I explained that initially. So it's going to be part of surveillance, but it's not. This surveillance will not be run by. It's not being run by the public health. It's being run by the LymeApp project. And also remember, it's going to be run by the ID maps. And also remember that NHS is part of this. That is not the public health Scotland.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to roll, we've still got quite a few questions, so I'm going to roll two questions into one from Mark and Jodie just about the cost of the app. So is there a long-term commitment to a free-to-use public-facing app, or do you see that being monetized in due course as well? And then also, can you explain the difference between the $1.99 version and the $4.99 version, please?
Oh,
That's you.
I hope you caught all that. So yeah, that's how it's priced. No, I'm only kidding.
Good try, Brian.
Yeah. I thought I'd put technology there. So basically, long term, we would like to be at the stage where we could give the product away, free after a couple of years. Once we know that it's commercially viable, we've managed to basically have an off-the-shelf product that we're selling in different countries across Europe, maybe even America. The ambitions for the company are huge. But as a small tech startup based in Inverness, all donations are welcome. I'm only kidding. So yeah, no, we need to basically be able to give ourselves a foothold within the marketplace. So when we're looking at the $1.99 version, so there would be access to let's just say the general terrain map versus the heat map, or the being able to basically get more informed knowledge from the knowledge base section of the app. And again, it's a bit of a grey area for us just now, because we haven't actually agreed as a business what the commercial model for the public, is it going to be a public low version versus a public high version versus a commercial version which has all kind of like a sliding scale of features which are going to be available. So again, as one of the ones where for $1.99 for an annual subscription, maybe we'll do something like for the first year everybody gets access to everything for $1.99, or we don't want to go down the route of the first 100 people will get access to this for 50p type thing. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. We want to have a commercially viable, strong product where people see the value in basically paying an annual subscription of $1.99, which is less than a cup of coffee, especially if they are going to be avid hill walkers or people who are out in the countryside a lot of the time, or whether they're part of a group. There's loads of different things that we still need to basically commercially think about in terms of that. But yeah, it's a really good question. I know it keeps coming up. I'm sure people have paid $1.99 or $4.99 for apps that have probably less substance to them, or less importance to them. So again, it's one of the ones where we may just either go a $1.99 release for everything for the first 1-2 years, or a free download, but actually it's getting in-app purchases up to like $4.99, which will give you access to everything. But once we know what that commercial model is, we will share with everybody. In fact, maybe what I should do is put a poll number 4 question in, which would be: would you be willing to pay $1.99 for the app off just now if it was ready? I know
we can do that. We can do that as a follow. We can do that as a follow-up, I think. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much, Brian. We don't have time for any more questions, unfortunately, but we do have a couple of questions that we've not managed to answer. So we will follow up with Brian and Jude after post-webinar and make sure that we do follow up with you. Anyone who's not had a question answered, don't worry, we will follow up with you post-webinar. So thank you so much. We're just conscious that we're running out of time here, but thank you so much for all the questions. That was really engaging, and thanks to Brian and Jude there. I'm just going to pass back over to Andrea now, who will say the final few words.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Brian and Jude. That was really, really interesting. There's so much to cover there, really. But I know it's a very interesting topic, and obviously, judging by the number of questions we got in, everyone was really, really interested and wants to find out more. So it would be great, as you said, if you let us know when the app is available, and we'll make sure we'll let everyone know that that is the case, so everyone can try it out for themselves. Before we close, I just wanted to draw your attention to our next NEXUS webinar, which is going to cover intellectual property management as an SME. And it's going to be on the 9th of November, and we're joined by Carolyn Piggott, who's a trademark attorney. So she's going to focus mainly on trademarks, and Caroline McLennan, my colleague from High, who's going to talk about IP audits. If you want to sign up, you can look on our High events page. The link is on the screen there. It's just high.co.uk/events. And just one more thing, we're also currently recruiting for our Pathfinder program. So it's an accelerator program that supports businesses to either launch as a new business or launch a new product or service. If you want to find out more, please have a look on our website. It's high.co.uk/Pathfinder, or you can join our next taster session. It's on the 10th of November at 2 p.m. And again, you can use the website to find the link to sign up for that event. So it would be great to either see you at the next webinar or see you at the Pathfinder taster session. So thank you again, Brian and Jude. It was really great to have you on board today. And I know you're very busy getting the app into the final stages before launch. So I really appreciate your time today, and it was great to have you. And thank you to the audience for attending too.
Great, Andrea, thank you. Okay, all that's left from me to say, on behalf of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, thank you very much for a great session today, Brian and Jude, and a final big thank you to everyone that came in to join the webinar. Our post-event survey will pop up straight after this session, so if you can spare a couple of minutes, it would be great if you could complete that for us. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.